MC Noah. I'm an intern at J Squared. I'm here to present the panel, The Next Wave of Consumer Crypto. So I don't know if you guys want me to introduce you, or you guys can introduce yourselves and give a brief intro.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm Aditi. I work on Para. We're building embedded wallet and onboarding infrastructure for apps building on crypto rails.
Hey, what's up? My name's Ozzy. I'm the founder of Zoe. We're building a chain-agnostic app that converges capital, intelligence, and coordination into one venue. Think WeChat.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, one of the co-founders at Rarible. I now recently moved to Rare Foundation side, working on the token. You know, Rarible, NFT company, we're doing all sorts of things, NFTs, for consumers, for businesses. Yeah, that would be it.
And I'm Richard, one of the co-founders of Orb Labs, and we're building API to help wallets and apps interact with all chains as if they're one.
Great. This panel is meant to be less of a primer into consumer crypto and more about the tacticals of operating in and building a consumer crypto company. These founders have been around for a very long time, and so I hope we can get into some interesting tidbits through this discussion. Great, consumer crypto. So trading and speculation drive a lot of crypto's attention and innovation, and obviously all the cycles we've all been through. And so if you could remove the financial incentives overnight, would anything valuable be left?
I can start. I think I experienced that firsthand with NFTs being the meme coins last cycle, when all the speculation was inside NFTs. We had like bubbles, and now all the speculators left. So we are here to experience what is left with NFTs without speculation. And I see two fundamental values. One of them is community. You still want to be part of the community. You're ready to pay several $1,000s for it, not like $400,000 as for like Ape last cycle. Maybe like the biggest one is CryptoPunk, right? 150K. It's still a great community. I'm going to go like to their brunch tomorrow. So this is a very fundamental market, about like 100 million in fees for everyone. Not too much for like 5 companies, right? We're battling for this revenue, but this is very fundamental. Another one is art, which is smaller than that. Second use case for NFT, which is like 20 million in fees for everyone. And I'm seeing a new emerging one, which is social, which is great, but very early, maybe like 5 million in fees. So that's what's left for the NFTs. Yeah. See the same in meme coins soon.
I think adding on to that, I strongly agree on the notion of community. I think the wallet is the perfect form of identity. It's pseudo-anonymous, self-sovereign, user-owned, and you have money over IP natively baked into this identity solution. Using that as a mechanism to gate based on reputation, I think is a very powerful experience. Again, without speculation, I do think that with the proliferation of LLMs, long-tail SaaS, the sort of economics of that is changing, and I think pay per action or pay per use using microtransactions such as on stablecoins, I think will open up a new medium for the on-chain economy.
I'm not sure I completely agree, actually. I think both of the use cases you highlighted still have a very strong financial component to it, right? So for example, even the metrics Alex mentioned for why these things are clear signs of traction was very much so revenue and volume, how much you're making. I think if you couple in trading, which is buying and selling stuff, with the whole financial sort of like landscape, then crypto's primary purpose is almost entirely financial. And the reason why is because like crypto's most useful for proving scarcity. And almost every time when you have something that is scarce, there's some sort of financial market that sort of emerges around it. And crypto does a pretty good job helping us track that scarcity and sort of like, well, couple the finances with it. But without that, almost everything we have right now can possibly be done with Web 2 infrastructure, and it'll be done pretty well, probably even better than it can be done in crypto right now, other than the financial stuff.
Yeah. Ooh, I like it. Some variety of opinions on this panel. And so in this kind of next upcoming cycle, you guys mentioned art, communities, microtransactions, payments. What's the kind of next upcoming shift you guys are really excited about, especially having been founders that have weathered multiple cycles at this point?
I can start again. So it's funny that you mentioned the first question, what would happen if we remove the speculation?
Yeah.
So that's actually the opposite of the direction we're going. We are adding speculation back.
Nice.
So that's like, it's not a secret that, it's not a surprise that the pump fund is the most like successful consumer product today in this cycle. And it is because it's fun. People are earning money, losing money. It's super fun to do. So that's the direction we're taking. We're coming back to the consumer market with the financialized trading product for NFTs, for the up and coming chains where people would be able to speculate, get burned, get fun, and yeah, enjoy life.
Yeah, I think for most cycles, at least the previous cycles, there was this expectation that we would see new use cases emerge in crypto, and those use cases would sort of like power user adoption. I actually don't think that's the case going forward. I think for most new tech, within the first few years, you have a pretty good understanding of what you can enable with that tech. So take for the internet. Within the first, like, say, 10 years, we knew things like e-commerce, social, things like, TV and radio are going to be pretty big on the internet. I think crypto already knows the things that's going to be big on crypto. Most of it is speculative, most of it is trading, most of it's payments, most of it is sort of like just tracking scarcity of assets. And from that perspective, the goal here on out is not necessarily coming up with entirely new systems that will give people value, more so trying to find a way to make these systems easily accessible by the people who want them. And I still think like that's something that we're yet to sort of like do a pretty good job at. And there's a lot of tools, companies, and players out there doing that, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I think we're building a consumer-facing app, and if you are targeting the crypto consumer, there's only probably 1 million users that are actively on chain playing this sort of casino-like game. If you're targeting the non-Web3 consumer, the approach for like top of funnel all the way to the end state, most consumers aren't used to hitting connect wallet and then immediately resolving a payment to get something in return. And so I think some of the tools we're using, some of the approaches we take is basically paying on behalf of the user, like sponsored gas as a mechanism, and also being able to use some of our tools without ever needing to pay. But we keep the wallet and your IP address as a reputation mechanism, so you don't obviously spam us or sybil us. That's sort of the approach we're taking.
Yeah. And so you all touched on points around speculative use cases, but also trying to figure out ways to make the experience as easy as possible. And so how are you guys thinking about retaining your users, especially over the course of evolving use cases, evolving tooling that you're using? What has been the most successful strategies in kind of retaining your user base into your product?
We don't have a consumer-facing company, so our user base is primarily sort of like apps and wallets, and for them, the goal is always making sure they have the best possible experience so that they can give that experience to their users. And if you're satisfied, well, the users are satisfied, and by extension, we're doing well for ourselves. So that's been our goal, basically putting our customers first and making sure they have the best possible experience with the tools that they're using. And also trying to sort of anticipate the type of things that their users want to do down the line and sort of like provide them with the tools to do that pretty well. That's been our strategy. But I'm pretty sure that it's drastically different from what we would be doing if we were a consumer-facing company. Like, just for context, like my first 2-3 years in crypto was spent building a social network on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. And the amount of work you have to do to sort of keep end users excited about just tools that are just crypto affiliated, but not necessarily speculative, is drastically different from just sort of like doing things that people want to do with speculative assets in crypto land.
Right, and I like that you mentioned the social network. I think my entire thesis about retention in the crypto is that every successful crypto app today is a network, and whoever has the network effect has retention. Whoever doesn't have network effect doesn't have retention. Yeah. Like you have a wallet with people send USDC. USDC has network effect, USDT has network effect, Uniswap has network effect. Yeah. Every network has retention, and people interact with each other, right? And that's why they stay. If they don't find who to interact with, they're leaving.
We think about, I'm the moderator, but I still have something to say about this. But we think about this a lot in the wallet world, especially with embedded wallets, where, yeah, like the whole point of crypto apps is composability. And often people are staying engaged in an app experience because there are composable things to do, whether it's with Barcaster like Ozzy's app or with NFTs or in general. And so, yeah, that's a big part of it. That makes sense.
I think with us, we've really taken a mobile-first approach back when we even started 2 years ago. And so I think the sort of model I have is capture attention, enable retention, and actualize intention in that order. And you're able to basically take bips on actualizing intent, but there has to be a medium to enable retention repeatedly. And so push notifications on mobile are basically the dominant medium through which Web 2 proliferated and created a relationship with their user. But crypto is very web-centric, where you use the extension. It's very difficult to keep a retentive user base with just web-based mediums. And also, I am building a sort of messaging-based social network, and we had a very hard time early on finding PMF. We were focused on sort of the DAO space by building like a decentralized Discord. Didn't really find PMF there, but when these LLMs came out, it's so powerful because it's infinite permutations of data. And with social networks, what you need is conversational liquidity. How to enable n number of interactions between actors. You can now bootstrap that with AI agents on the other side to enable retention and intention within your app immediately.
Cool. This next set of questions is a little bit more company building oriented, because I think there's a lot of folks in the audience that are thinking about starting a company in crypto, thinking more about consumer crypto. And so curious, what's an uncomfortable reality that operators in your specific verticals across AI, chain abstraction, NFTs refuse to acknowledge when they're getting started?
Refuse to acknowledge.
Refuse to acknowledge. So what's an uncomfortable truth about building a company in the space you're building in?
Yeah. Oftentimes it's too early. I think that's one of the uncomfortable truths. I still feel like even for us, even for NFTs, it may be still even too early. We have a bunch of problems on the infrastructure side that we need to solve for like a good consumer apps to be available. And then, you're taking a bet, it's going to be hard, and then it's like you have no control over the market, where it's going to grow or it's not, and sometimes you just sit there and wait for the market to arise.
Yeah.
So you need to have a very high conviction. If you're starting a company, you're going to probably spend like 5-10 years building that. So that's the thing you need to think about when you start a company.
You mentioned the infrastructure point. Is that more of you're waiting for other parts of the infrastructure to get developed? Okay, interesting. In what way?
Well, every consumer application, I think, hit the scalability game. Like in 2021, NFTs, everybody's like, okay, let's create NFTs. Oh, it costs $100 to mint one. Yeah. Okay, now let's create L2. Oh, there's no liquidity on L2. There's no interoperability. Okay, let's wait for the bridges to be built and integrated. Okay, we're sitting.
Definitely agree with Alex on the sometimes they're just too early point. So just for example, we first raised our seed round at Orb Labs 2 years ago, telling the story of simplifying Web3 UX. And it took almost a whole year before even the primary premise we were raising on, which is there's going to be this whole explosion of chains, to actually happen. And then once the explosion of chains point happened, it took like another year convincing folks that, hey, just bridging from chain to chain wasn't the most pleasant experience. Let's try to find something else. And I would say even the sort of conversation around chain abstraction is just starting to sort of turn in a positive direction with wallets and apps suddenly starting to get interested in chain abstraction. But had we had everything done and sort of like ready to go 2 years ago, knocking on the door, trying to get people to sort of integrate the system, it probably wouldn't have gone so well because people just didn't feel that need or pain yet. So sometimes just being right there at the right time is exactly what you need to sort of like make an otherwise sort of like great idea take off.
Yeah, and I feel like in the infra world, you can very much lean with narratives. And I don't think that's the same in the consumer app space. Great. I wonder if you have reactions to that.
So the thing about consumers aren't as swayed by very technical research jargon. You can basically present a very compelling sort of idea for why something should be there. And if the consumers don't find immediate need for it, they're not going to sort of budge,
Yeah.
which makes consumer way more difficult to sort of like navigate if you're too early. In some cases, if you're too early in consumer, you're just dead. There's nothing else you can do about it. But yeah, again, like I think the secret there is making sure you actually monitor what people are doing and just try to sort of like provide slight optimizations on those and wait long enough to sort of like have your time under the sun. I'll take an example of this is like, there's right now a bridging player that is doing pretty well called Relay. And Relay's whole sort of like mechanism for moving funds around is like, give us your money and then we'll give you money again back on some other chain. There's some element of trust with Relay. Had Relay been launched 2 years earlier, it probably wouldn't have gotten that much sort of like traction because 2 years earlier, there was all this conversation around bridges being risky and possible hacks and do you have to trust a bridge operator. The appetite just wasn't there. There was a lot of like spooky conversations that users were aware of about like, hey, the problems with sort of like having a trusted intermediary. But now the times have changed, right? And now Relay sort of like benefiting immensely from this sort of like change in times for consumers. So again, like I think for consumer apps, just being there at the right time is sort of perfect for you to sort of like do well.
Yeah, I think with crypto, it's the half-life of narratives is so quick that being able to tell a story that can be fluid enough for the narratives that come, I think is very important. And also, now I had some trouble early on with just hiring because I think the time to liquidity in crypto is so quick for what we do that it can attract sort of mercenary individuals that want just the liquidity and exit. And also, if there is a token attached to it, it does attract basically a certain type of a crowd on Twitter that can reflexively alter your course that you want it to do as a founder. So I think those are some things that I think about a lot as well.
And have you guys found that with the recent kind of meme coin meta that most social projects are reliant on launching a token? Or do you think that that's not true?
I know a lot that are, but I really don't think it's the right way to do it. You don't want to have a liquidity event and then build your product. You want to build your product, have retention, utility, and then have the liquidity event that can drive further network effects with a token as a flywheel for growth. And I think it's great that we get to see everyone experiment, but I don't think using a meme coin for your main product, maybe an ancillary product is okay, but not for your core product.
I think most successful social products don't have a token yet, actually. Like Farcaster doesn't have a token, Rodeo doesn't have a token, Zora is kind of social, doesn't have a token. Yeah, they will probably launch a token at some point, but then they're all trying. That's actually one category that I think can live with a token for some time, which is exciting.
I guess I still have some sort of PTSD from social days, but I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on any crypto social platform yet. I think like the general idea for social networks have historically done really well when they come around new content forms, and they're capable of capitalizing on those content forms to produce new experiences that users enjoy. So like with Twitter, you have SMS, so the whole 140 characters. With Instagram, the camera starts getting better, so you're good to go. With Snapchat, the front-facing camera gets better, so now you're better off with front-facing photos. Even TikTok and sort of like Vine all came when 4G internet was getting really good, so like you had better streaming video. I'm not sure we found that experience yet for crypto, other than possibly speculation, right?
Like the form factor.
The form factor.
Yeah.
Maybe speculation is that form factor.
I would argue NFTs were kind of that.
NFTs got really close. I agree.
Yeah.
But I think they couldn't hold on long enough to sort of like make it become the final thing users were coming for, right? Because I guess most users couldn't sort of like appreciate it as much as crypto heads did. Now the question is there some form factor in crypto that can incentivize a user experience that users want to stick to long term? Like we're talking over the span of a decade, which is like the main thing for social, right? You need to be around for like a decade to be able to capitalize on the sort of like return factor. And I think if we're being honest, perhaps crypto socials will look very different and they'll look more like Pump.Fun than Facebook, Native Big Blue, or Instagram. And if that's the case, then they probably should be leaning more into speculation sooner rather than later.
Taking it all the way back. Yeah, circular. I'm curious, Alex, if you have thoughts on the form factor question, just given that you've
Yeah,
spent so much time on NFTs?
that gave me good food for thought. NFTs are more like people think that NFTs are content, but it's not really content. It's more like a feature of your like online identity. That's why it's a little bit different. But I agree, it did not reach the potential that needs to be. Like Lens tried to do social network on NFTs fully. I'm not sure it's working so far. Like Rodeo is also doing kind of social network with NFTs. Probably the most successful use case so far, but I agree, it's still like photo and video. Maybe the most successful social network in crypto is like payments network. You can pay people, and that's like kind of another form
Peer-to-peer,
factor. Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah, I guess if you rank like Cash App as a pseudo social app, then like crypto is well positioned to sort of like have a global Cash App-esque system, right? With social features that sticks around. But yeah, I do think like again, payments, money, finances, sort of like speculation will probably end up being core parts of whatever social network gets appears in crypto.
Have you seen 0x People app?
I have not.
Yeah.
It's like some guy who like cashed out 200 million from his previous startup. He created a social network where you can see the net worth of the person when you're following them, like a network. Okay, it's like 200
See their
million
activity.
following.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's funny, I think they also add in social feeds, and so you can see if they're tweeting about a token or something, and then they've just dumped it. It just gives you some better context on
Actually, I just
whether to buy it or not.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry for cutting you off, Aditi. But just hearing about the social feeds made me remember there is a Web2 trading social platform called Public. That's a mix of a feed
Kickstarter.
and trading and
Sure.
Why doesn't a version of that exist for crypto? I feel like it's
Yeah.
the perfect place for it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of crypto sort of like trading comes down to like, hey, knowing what other people are doing and sort of getting there before others.
I think Vector is doing something like that.
Yeah, copy trading.
Yeah, right. Last question, we're about 30 seconds out. AI in crypto, NFTs, chain abstraction. One needs to go. Which one is overhyped and why?
Well, NFTs are definitely not overhyped at this point.
Yeah.
No, all need to stay. No one needs to go. AI is hyped. It will come down, but it's the most hottest thing we have right now. Let's explore what we can do with it.
Okay, I volunteer as tribute. The hope is that chain abstraction goes away.
Okay.
I think like once you have features do really well over a long enough time horizon, you don't actually remember them anymore.
Yeah.
No one thinks about like anything in the internet stack when you're sort of like using the internet. I think similarly when it comes to chain abstraction, if chain abstraction works pretty well within the next 2-3 years, you shouldn't be thinking about chain abstraction when you're interacting with crypto. Yeah. I still think there's going to be room for AI because you're going to be thinking about whatever AI chatbot you're talking to. I think there's still going to be room for NFTs because you're going to like know there's this asset that sort of like is tied to your identity or whatever you're doing. But the hope is in 2-3 years from now, no one knows about or even cares about chain abstraction because it's done so well
Sick.
and getting integrated.
I love it.
I'd agree, and I think I'd also say chain abstraction. I think the end user should never have to think about the security implications. And AI is obviously going to stay around. It creates infinite information. In an area of infinite information, you need digital scarcity, which is NFTs. And so I think those two will be very important in the future.
Thank you for the sacrifice.
Thank you so much.